Okay, screen is there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So this screen and depicts on the left side of the corner, at the top, you see the electrode, and below those three electrodes is a lateral flow cassette. You all know that it is the lateral flow device or a home pregnancy kit. So it is made of this lateral flow device, and which made and these devices as a best point of care devices. And on the right top corner, you will see again a electrode, and this is the Metro Hub. This is the one of the palm sense electrode connector.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. सर ये फुल स्क्रीन पे नहीं हुआ है, प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में हैंग हो गया है या तो।
अच्छा अच्छा, ये इसमें भी कुछ ऐसे ही दिख रहा है, स्क्रीन इज पॉज्ड ऐसे लिखा आ रहा है।
वापस से कर दीजिए सर।
स्टॉप शेयरिंग, आई विल डू अगेन। पॉज लिख के आ रहा था उसमें, मैं आई विल फर्स्ट क्लोज ऑल द अदर थिंग्स। It's again the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Anil, it's moving?
No, sir.
Please move this window away from the shared application. I'm redoing, I'm closing the micro PowerPoint and then redo it. Anil, screen is coming now?
Yes, sir. Screen is coming, but it is not in
Not in full mode.
Yes, sir.
Let's check whether it is moving from here or no. It's still not moving.
सर या तो एक बार लॉग आउट करके री लॉग इन करिए जूम पे.
अच्छा, completely.
जी सर.
1 minute. Okay. Okay, I'm just doing the same. I'm logging out.
ठीक है सर.
I am leaving. So it's coming now, Anil?
Yes, sir. Screen is sharing.
Okay, I'm putting into the full flight flow mode. Again, it is showing the paused.
There is some problem, sir.
It's been sharing it paused. Let's see whether it's moving in from my side.
But sir, it is paused here.
Okay, it is paused there. Please move this window away from the shared application. You are using enhanced input. Let's see in the small mode if it is
Okay, sir. Yeah, if it is not working, then just
simple. If it is moving in that, then it's this slide, what we are seeing in this slide and what we are seeing, we have three prominent three important sensors, and that we have worked on and are quite visible here. On the left top, you have the electrode that are used in all your glucometer or other electrochemical type of sensor. And below this, here it is similar to the home pregnancy. It's your lateral flow kit, and this is the connector that fixes your electrode and for the electrochemical sensing. And on the right corner, this is a gold chip. Here it is a gold chip, and this chip immobilize your antigen or antibody, and for sensing over the one of the newer platform, the surface plasmon resonance biosensor platform. So I have been the part of this IBRI for the last more than 22 years, and before that I passed a brief stint of around 4 years at the Central Larry John Research Institute, so almost 26 years in this ICR system. And before that, I was part of the Indian Institute of Technology as a PhD program. And I'll move on. So now it comes into the mind and why the sensor has become almost so important in our daily life, and why we are talking about the sensor as a research or sensor as something and that is the life in our daily routine. So the sensing, why the sensing has become so important. The sensing is important in the sense that it has a response, and that's very rapid, very accurate, and it comes at a faster pace, and you can have a sensing from the remote location, and you can integrate and these type of the data that acquired and through the sensing into its computational system, into any of the presentation systems, and everything, and can be done on the latest communication system. So everything can be integrated with these type of the sensor. So, and then we come the types of the sensors. So there are the many types of the sensors, whether it is electrochemical, whether it is a visual sensor, whether it is ASPR type sensor, whether it is ampliometric, or whether a heat sensor or the impact sensors, acoustic sensors. So there are the several type of the sensors. As you have seen all the sophisticated devices, whether it is the rocket or your cars or your mobile, it has hundreds of the sensing. It has hundreds of the sensors, and that any device sophistication is based on how many sensors it has in it. So the application of the sensor, use of the sensors are basically increasing. So your newer mobile may have more sensor as compared to the older version. And then we will discuss about what is the technological base of these sensors. So all the sensors, they work on a different technology. And because of the different technology, they have the different advantages and strength, and depending upon the application. So we choose our sensor where, which one. So the development of a sensor is so fast in today's world that none of the developer is sure about and which technology of the sensing technology would be of the economic use. So sometimes it is becoming a little negative, and for those investors, they are not sure of the change in the sensor technology is so fast. They are not sure of where to invest the money. That may become a redundant after a few months or a few years. It's nothing in this area right now which you can say that it will continue on for another 10 years or 25 years. Such is the rapidness of the development in this particular area. So what we are concerned with some of the life-saving sensing systems, and which provides the continuous monitoring of any biomolecules, enzymes, or any other substance that we try to. So something that we can do by the remotely placing, sitting remotely, or something that we can sense by the order. Sometimes in an earthquake situation where the human life is under the debris. So in that condition, how to know about? So nowadays, only the dog, which are the which can smell faster as compared to these sensors. So we are trying, and that's why whenever it is talk about the sensor, it is always said that it is the electronic nose. The electronic nose then refers to the sensitivity, and that is equivalent or the higher, and then the dog one. So that's type of the sensor which is capable of detecting the odor, smell, sweet, and other beverage taste are being developed, have been developed. So we have to integrate and these sensors and with the need-based delivery mechanism and limiting the overdose of the drugs. So as you know that we have a glucometer, now the continuous monitoring glucometers are also there. You clamp them into the part of your body from the outside, and they keep on recording your sugar level round the clock. And at the same time, they can be coupled with the delivery devices, either the patch or other things. So as when there is a sugar level down, they can give that quantity and through the patch. So that sort of the sensing has become important nowadays. Okay, so next please. So the major sensors that we worked on in our lab, electrochemical sensors are the new one, which Dr. Gatani and then Madhuri Jadhav and Hira Khan, they have worked on. So this is the new thing, but these sensors were developed late from beginning of the 1962. And first glucometer was developed by the Medisense company around 1980s or so. So, and since then there has not been a going back. And there are the many types of electrochemical sensors nowadays available. And this is the one of the area which is having frenetic activities in the research. And this sensors and have the capability to integrate with your electro devices, computer devices, or acquiring the telecommunication devices. This is one of the most promising area of the sensors. So the electrochemical sensor is one of the prominent sensor technology. Then the surface plasmon resonance sensors, and this technique was also developed in the late 80s, around 89 by the Bolidberg group in Sweden. and later on acquired by the many companies in the worldwide, and now the one of the leading company in the world that's developed many of the lab-based sensor platform. So these SPR biosensor, they are mostly the lab-based platform, and they have the advantages. This is one of the most quality platform for analyzing the molecular interactions. So among the partners, biomolecules which interact with each other, and this is the technique and that mostly employed, and we rely this technique and most as compared to the other interacting devices or technology. And then the third class of the sensing technology, that are the sensors that we have worked on, which is a qualitative, more in qualitative nature, the immunochromatographic test or the lateral flow test. Interchangeably they are used and they are understood in that terms. It is a small devices where you see the rapid test having a two positive lines. When the two colored line appearing, we see that it is a positive sample, as in the case of the SARS-CoV or the home pregnancy kit. And this is also one of the point of care devices in which are being used worldwide. And you can see how this home pregnancy kit is used, and this is so easy to use this pregnancy kit. So similar fashion, we can have another set of another large number of the ICT devices in the country, and we have been fortunate at the IVRI for the last almost 8 to 10 years, and we have developed these ICTs and for PPR disease and Babesia gibsoni, which have been validated and are in use in our laboratory. And the test is so fantastic, you can't believe it's almost the same as available in the commercial market and for the other diseases. And we are in the process of sending them and for the market. And besides these two prominent ICTs, we have at least 2, 3, and for the another Babesia Vogelii, Theileria annulata, and also Anaplasma. So these in that area, and other also for the Brucella and gluten and Japanese encephalitis. So they are almost 7, 8 others. And also we could identify the food of the different origin, and through these lateral flow devices, one of the scientists, Rajiv Ranjan, in the LPT division, he has made and these strip and for identify whether this meat sample is in from which origin. So, and another visual test that we can have a tube or 2 ml or 1.5 ml tube, and we can see the color change, and based on the interaction whether the sample is positive or negative. So such sort of 4 technologies, and we have worked at the IVRI successfully. We are thoroughly confident over our work on this sensor at our center here. These are the point of care devices, in each having distinct advantages. They have their own advantages. So depending upon the application, depending upon the requirement, and we can use and these sensing technology, these sensors. Next. So now one by one, little elaborated, we will elaborate you. And this is the PalmSense 3, a very small palm size device. And it's so not similar to the glucometer in terms of its size, because it's a little bigger in size, allowing us and to develop a newer research and for our application. And that's why it has got a large wide range of frequencies and other calibration ports. So a little bigger in size, and this is the connector point, and we have attached our electrode, and similar to the echo strip here. So, and this electrode, and the central dot is a working electrode, and then reference electrode. So this is the 3 electrode system. And what we do all our chemistry on this central dot. So we immobilize our biomolecules here at the central dot. And how to immobilize, and that immobilization procedure requires a linking chemistry, and that we do at our lab. As case of the glucometer, we have a glucose oxidase immobilized on the membrane surface, and that interact with the glucose and produce the gluconic acid and then the electrons. And this type of the device, the glucometer, is a amperometric sensor, a amperometric device where the increase in the electrons or increase in the current is correlated or linearly correlated with the glucose level in the sample, whether it is a blood or anywhere else. And that is also calibrated and the programmed to have a display in terms of the quantity of the glucose present. But here in this, we have a display at our computer or the laptop, and where we keep on doing the research and manipulating and developing. So in terms of this PalmSense, and we use them for the research development. And whenever we develop a particular set of protocols for a, suppose a neuraminidase detection, and then we can come and go for a similar kind of devices. Next, so the types of the electrochemical sensor are the potentiometric, amperometric, and the electrochemical. That we worked on is the electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, the electrochemical impedance sensor. So these are the three types. So, and it uses the three electrode system, the working counter and reference. And if you see this working electrode, it's a tiny dot of around 1 mm, only 1 mm. And on this 1 mm surface, dia surface, and we do all our chemistry. We all put our electrode to our biomolecules, immobilize there, fix there, and then see its performance in terms of its interaction over the electrochemical sensor surface. So it appears to be not a very simple thing. You have to be very careful and have to know how the things are moving at such a small level. Next one. And this is the lab-based system that is called the surface plasma resonance biosensor. This is a BioRad machine, and then there is a Biocore machine. There is some other, the Reichert. There are the many companies now in the market, but these are the very costly systems. We do not have many systems in the country. But what the advantage these systems have, they have a very good molecular interaction platform. If you have an antigen antibody, if you have any two types of the interacting molecules, you can screen the drug molecules on the cell surface, you can screen the biomolecule interactions. So that sort of a robust, reliable information you can have over this system, and there is no comparison with this systems to any other system. So in that sense, it is very useful, but you can develop your own chip also. A small gold chip, you can immobilize your antigen. Sometimes that gold chip you can keep and with you for a longer period of time of 2 years or so. And whenever the sample comes, you just insert your chip inside the machine and flow your sample and throw the fluidic channel. And within a few minutes, you can know whether this virus, bacteria is there or no. So that kind of the capability of this sensor, and we have worked on this sensor during our postdoctoral program at the QC University, where there was a program for detection of the organic substance called the trinitrotoluene, and this TNT, which is the explosive molecules and mainly found in the landmines, and which at that time and during the war, which are put into the field, and then they become a very severe injury things, and for the either for the soldiers or the common person living there. So we tried to develop a sensor and for detection of these landmines initially on the basis of the vapor that emanates around those landmines. And so here what this is the sensor chip, the gold chip, and then you have a thiol organic molecules, and over that you can immobilize the antibody. This is the anti-TNT antibody here, and then you have interacting molecules. So that's sort of, and the basic principle is here that we will discuss it in detail in subsequent slides. Next, please. SPR sensor works in the same fashion as your ELISA. It is a direct detection. If you have immobilized one shot of partner on the gold surface, and then you flow another partner, suppose the antibody is on the surface, and you put the antigen over, so then it will give you your immobilization value, the RAU value called resonance value, direct assay. You can have an inhibition assay format, you can have a competitive assay format, you can have an indirect assay format, but in the ELISA, you cannot have a displacement assay format. But this machine allows you to have a displacement assay format. And in all types, it is similar to the ELISA. As we emphasized again, it's a very robust molecular interaction platform, and its stability is far superior as compared to the ELISA. If you immobilize your antibody or antigen, and then the base level remains so for a longer period of time, because it's not a physical adsorption on the sensor surface, it's a covalent absorption of the antibodies, covalent linking. So covalent linking is the far and far superior as compared to the physical adsorption as in the case of the ELISA, and that did not detach easily by any of the pH change or the temperature or by the electrolyte solution. So in that sense, the stability in this platform is superior as compared to the ELISA. Next. And the rapid test strips, that is very common, you all know, and very well you can understand, and based on your home pregnancy kit. And this is the one that we developed 4 or 5 years back, and for the Babesia gibsoni. It is one of the parasites and found in the blood and in the canine species, and it's prevalent significantly in the canine population, and make a lot of loss and health loss for the canines. And not only for this, is for the human case, and we at the IVRA, under the direction of the Dr. S.K. Singh from the reproduction division, have developed a lateral flow assay, and for detection of the diagnosis on the 21st or after 2 weeks in the case of the animal initially from the serum sample. So that technology is likely to become in the next 6 months or 1 year. We are doing a round of experiment right now. Almost 300 to 400 samples we have run and checked. It's having a specificity and sensitivity around 80%. So that is under the pipeline in the process. Next, please. So you all know these are the very common tests that are in the market. You know, recently during the SARS pandemic, how important role these rapid tests, the SARS-CoV or LFA test has done. Initially, there was some problem with some of the test kit, but later on we found that they are good one and very helpful. And for the rapid diagnosis of the CoV, there are the malaria tests available in the market, and the canine parvovirus test is also available in the market. Brucella test is also available in the market for animals and humans. Next. So now we have exposed you to the 3 basic important sensor technologies. Now we come into the what the sensor are. So the sensor, basically you need a biorecognition event to occur at a certain surface, and that biorecognition event and has to be transduced there should be a transducer which transduces that biorecognition event and to a certain kind of measurable signal. And that measurable signal, normally in the form of the electrical signal, can be amplified by the amplifier and put into and for the display over the controlling software. So this is the typical diagram. So unless there's a transducer in it, we cannot say it as a biosensor. So the transducer is an important element, and we consider it as a part of our definition. And that's why the lateral flow devices does not fulfill this part, and particularly the transducer part. So they have a qualitative test to hear what? These are the bioreceptors, these are the analytes. The bioreceptors reason it has a molecularly recognizing material. You need a molecularly recognizing material here. So either it is enzyme or antibody or any organism or any cells. You put and immobilize here, mostly by the covalent linking. And then you have a host of the sample materials, and where it contains the analyte, and that analyte interact specifically with the bioreceptors available on the surface. And that event, when it is interacting, is transduced and by your transducer, whether it is electrode, whether it is a semiconductor pH electrode, or a thermistor which senses the heat, or it is a photon counter which senses the light, or it is a piezoelectric device which senses the mass change. So these are the transducer and which are used and for sensing the biological event that is occurring at the surface of the sensor. And that recognition, that transducer which produces a signal, that signal is a measurable one, and that can be amplified, and that can be controlled by the softwares or the controlling software. So this is the basic mechanism behind each and every sensor. Okay, next, move on. So these are the analytical devices, couple biological materials, tissue, organisms, organelle receptors, enzymes, antibodies to the physicochemical transducer. And these are typically are the optical, calorimetric, acoustic, electrochemical, magnetic. So these are the specific interaction between the target analyte and the biological materials, and produces the physicochemical changes that is detected by the detectors, transducers. And transducer then yield a digital signal, and that can be amplified, and signal can be measured, and a discrete set of measurement is possible. Next. So why we need the sensor at all? Because the way that you are doing right now is based on either the fluorescence or the radioactivity or your ELISA assay. So these are the most reliable or the cornerstone of the most of the biological protocol and the cornerstone, and for the most of the evaluation that you do right now at your laboratory. But they have the certain disadvantages, like they are not very sensitive enough. They have the interference, they have the cross reactivity. You do the labeling, and the labeling also create a problem. A fluorophore, one thing that particularly they are very limited in number. You do not have a new fluorophore, which are the fluorophores that are existing in the nature. You can only have that one. It's not easy to produce a new fluorophore. So that limitation is very binding. So you try to skip and that limitation, and that's why a newer sensor are required. And most of the sensor, they are labeled ones. So you need a label-free detection technology. And the what that we have described so far as the label-free sensor, these are rapid, specific, highly sensitive, and provide a platform that you can manipulate the sensor matrix and for the diverse and the versatile application. It's in your hand, you can develop, manipulate, and these sensor matrix. So these are the advantages with the sensor that we are going to discuss next. So this is the one way now we are moving. This diagram is and particularly and for the surface plasmon resonance sensor. And here we have a gold chip. It is just suppose you think of a glass substrate, over it a gold film is there. A gold film of very 50 nanometer in thickness is there, and on that gold film, what you do, you wash it. You wash it, there should not be any adherent to it. And then what you do, you put some of the alkane thiol, some of the organic molecules, and we call it the as a self-assembly of these 11 amino undecane thiol or 16 mercaptohexadeconic acid. So these are the organic molecules which make a self-assembly as shown in the surface 2 in the picture here. So this is the amino terminal here, and then on this, as you have either amino group or the carboxylic group or any hydrazide group, then there are the chemistry available and for linking your biomolecule. So there are the certain definite chemistry available. So here you can cross-link. If you want to link the amino group, then BS3 linker is there. If you want to link the carboxylic group, then your EDCNHS chemistry is available. And similarly, and they are the other linkers which can modify the group. If you have a lipid group over it, and then you have an NTSU group. So like that, you have a different chemistry applicable, and you can immobilize your biomolecules here, the DNP KLH. This is particularly with reference to the TNT detection. So we have immobilized a protein attached with the DNP, which is an analog molecule of TNT over this surface. So this is the way that we have linked it, and through this BS3, bis sulfosuccinimidyl subrate. This is one of the linker which attaches amino group to the amino group. So this attachment was done on this glass substrate of 1 centimeter square area. So this is the way that we attach your biomolecules of interest. And for doing this, what you need to do, you have your molecules in a purified form. If you do not have a molecule in a purified form, either you have to extract the proteins and from the cells, or you have to have a recombinant protein, or you have a peptides, or you have a drug molecules attached and with a protein. So those shorter molecules is not easier to attach, and so sometimes, and we make a heptane of it, we attach with the protein molecules, and that protein molecules have a group and that can bind to the surface. So this is the way that we mobilize our these proteins, these lipids, carbohydrates, or the antigens, or any other biological molecules over the sensor surface. And that's the important part of your sensor business. And the rest of the things that you will see in the next slide, we may rush through them because there is a most elaboration. So we do not want you to spend much time over it, but we have a certain 10-15 slides for the development of the TNT sensor over several surfaces that we have worked on. So this is the mechanism how this label-free detection is occurring at the surface plasma resonance. What is happening here on this gold film, and through the thiol group, you can attach your antibodies. So this is the antibodies you have attached over the gold film, and this is the fluidics. From here, it is the fluidics. Your buffer are coming. Here, though, your PBS is coming and going out, and that flow rate may be the 10, 20 microliter and per minute, a very small flow rate. And the quantity that you require for the detection is also not very high, only a few microliter. 5, 10 microliter quantity is sufficient for the detection. It's not you need to have any 100 microliter or so. So that's the smaller quantity is required. And then there is a spherical glass prism, is a quartz prism here. And then there's a LED here in a rectangular fashion. They are assembled LEDs here, and they fire a light at an angle theta and to the base of this gold film. And then there is a detectors array. It's not, it's a totally a XY dimension detector array at many locations. So these detectors array, they detect. And what happens, these detectors measure these reflected intensity of the light and from this surface. So what we found, we are seeing there is a cusp, there is a maxima like structure. So here the intensity is at particular angle is lowest. And what we do, we put our antibodies, and what we see that at antibodies, when you run this assay at particular angle, you find that it is the angle, it shows a minima here in terms of the reflected intensity. And when you put your analyte bind with this antibodies, and this minima shifted to a other angle. This is here on the x-axis is the angle shift. So this angle shift is shown in the resonance angle shift. So most of the graph that you will see later on in these slides will come like this. Here the antibody is immobilized. This is the baseline. Here the antigen starts interacting. So more and more antigen are coming. So there is a more and more angle shift. And at the peak of the immobilization, peak of the interaction of the antigen, it reaches at a high point in terms of the resonance angle shift. And then later on, it becomes stabilized. So that particular concentration of the antigen available, it stabilizes in the time frame of around 5 minutes or 4 minutes interval. So this shift in the delta angle, delta theta, which is reflected here, is put into your computer screen as this type of the behavior. So if larger is the quantity of the antigen, the wider would be the resonance shift. This is the three-dimensional view, so nothing to do with move ahead. So what the phases you have, here it is the baseline. You have not injected your interaction, your antigen. As you put your antigen passes through the fluidics, it starts interacting with the antibodies. So this is a phase called the association phase. This phase is the association phase up to a certain time second. Suppose it is a 10 minutes so interaction protocol. If it is keep on increasing, it means that it has not saturated. It's so the available sites is being bound and by the antigen. If saturation occurs, it means that all the available sites are being bound. And then your antigen stops here at this point. Your antigen in the fluidics is finished, your process 10 minutes is finished. Then there is a natural dissociation. That antigen that is bound with the antibody starts dissociating. And that's why your SPR sensor is capable of visualizing the dissociation in the real-time phase. So if the natural dissociation is faster, you see the affinity or the binding constant is lower. And for that particular set of the interacting partner or antigen antibody or streptavidin biotin or whatever the receptor enzyme, so whatever the interacting partner, if dissociation is stable, it goes to the straight way. It means that it is a very strong binding. There is almost no dissociation. It's very having high binding. So you are knowing about the binding constant. You may not be feeling that binding constant. Why it is important? It is very, very important for our assay application, for our rapid assay development. So in that sense, so we want to know these binding constant. So and we want to know the pH variation, at what pH and how much the binding constant, and these are very much essential and for developing the lateral flow assay. So these are the technology which are complementary to each other, and this binding we take into account the PI of the solution. So this, and then what you do, you put a NaOH solution or the glycine HCl in certain molarity, and then these interacted antigen is removed from the gold surface, and surface becomes regenerated again and comes back to the baseline again for the next round of the antigen immobilization. it means that your chip is intact, it is not wasted, you can reuse it. So these chips of the SPR, you can use 100 times, they keep on giving the result. And once you make them ready, you can, whenever a sample comes, you insert the chip into the machine and run the sample. So that's the advantage with this SPR system. So the next slide that are coming, we may go through. So these are the ultrasensitive. Okay, next, move to the next one. So that's what we are showing, how the competitive inhibition assay can be done. So if it is this is the inhibition assay, what you do, you put your one set of the detection molecules on the surface, and you put your antibody. You put your antibody, then you see there is a higher response of the antibody when it is antibody alone. And then the antigen that you want to detect, if you mix that antigen with the antibody and then let it flow, then there would be the fewer the antibody binding with this, because some of the antigen bind with the antibody available in the sample, so the response would decrease. And this creates one of the method that's called the inhibition assay format in the SPR. Okay, next. Then the measurement of the TNT, and what we did the measurement of the TNT. This is the displacement assay method is not available in the ELISA system. What you do, you put your DNP KLH on the surface and then you inject the antibody of the TNT. Response is high. Then what you do, you again inject TNT molecule here. So what this TNT molecule do? This TNT molecule take away some of the bound antibodies and from the surface more faster, and depending upon the concentration of the TNT. So this becomes another type of the displacement assay format in the case of only the SPR sensor technology. So this is the displacement assay that can be used on the surface plasma on resonance sensor. Next. So this is the ready-made sensor chip, mostly the CM5 available with the Biocore system, and it has what? It has, you can use the NH2 chemistry, thiol chemistry, your aldehyde group, hydroxyl group, and carboxylic group. You can, these are the ligand binding available, and for binding these, the four chemistry are the prominent ones that are available for binding your analyte or binding your molecules over the surface. Next. These are the gold chip, normally the 10 chips block. So we, in IVRI also, we used in these chips and for making the PPR sensor. Next, please. This is the Biocore machine that we have used in our laboratory in the Japan, but here in IVRI also we have a Metrohem system and of the SPR. Next. So these are the following surfaces, and were studied at that time. We did several chemistry mercaptodeconic, then amino undecane thiol, then the different linker here. Then we made a three-dimensional surface using the polyamidoamine dandimer surface. This is the three-dimensional surface, making more molecules of your antigen available on the surface so as to enhance the sensitivity. So these sort of the manipulation you can do on the surface so as to enhance the sensitivity of your surface. So that's all things are possible on this sensor surface. Next. So this is how the displacement assay, and we found that 900 ppt level of the TNT can be detected over the sensor. This is a sigmoidal curve we could obtain in the displacement assay format. Next, please. These are some of the chemicals listing which can be used: 16 mercapto, 11 amine undecane thiol. These are the EDC, these are the linkers. This is the facilitators linking the biomolecules. This is another linker, and we have not only these few. Right now we have 3-4 more types of the linkers for linking the different, whether it is hydrophilic molecule or whether it is hydrophobic molecule, depending upon the molecules, the hydrophobicity, and we have a different kind of linkers and that we use. Here you can see that the DNP KLH4 and DNP KLH 623 simply say that the over this this KLH molecule you have 4 DNP molecules. Here on the over the KLH molecule you have a 623 DNP molecule that provides a more antigen on the surface. So this is the what we can have a different type of the surface. Next. So, okay, this we want to skip here. Let's move ahead. So this is okay, just a narration what we have already, and move ahead. Okay, next please. So yes, just we want to see how, if you have a three-dimensional matrix, what we are talking about right now, we are going for the two-dimensional, three-dimensional cell development or the tissue development over the three-dimensional matrix. So it is similar. If you have a three-dimensional matrix, then you have a better development of the tissue in a cell culture system. So it's a similar way. If you have a three-dimensional surface over a gold chip, and you have a better immobilization of your antigen or antibody over the surface, and so as to enhance the your sensitivity. This is just to simply narrating that there is the advantage of using the three-dimensional surface. Next, please. Next, please. This is again the same in terms of showing that almost it is a 1.4 times advantage in terms of the shifting in the angle by using the Glandimer surface, and that's why we adopted a three-dimensional surface. Next, please. And then you always want how you can be assured that you are putting your antigen antibody and another thing, how you check whether your surface is specific or no. So then what we did, we put our TNT analog over the surface, and we checked that your anti-TNT antibody, the mouse monoclonal, is giving a very huge response of around 3000 RU here. This is the response level, and see here the behavior. It's binding so fast in a minute here, and then stabilizing. For the rest of the part, it's a monoclonal antibody that is strong affinities. So all the monoclonal antibodies, they show a strong linear curve here, a stable curve here. And then when you regenerate with the NOH, it goes down and comes back. And when instead of the anti-TNT antibodies, you flow the antibody of the goat or a goat anti-mouse, so then you see that it just shows certain change reflection here. But after, as you finishes your injection, it comes back automatically without putting any regeneration solution. So it means that it goes and passes through the sensor. Sensor initially shows some bulk response, because when there is another antibody then flowing through the system will show a different bulk response. But that's not stable as that bulk response or that another antibody and passes through that sensor, and when passes through it, the time is over, it comes back to again its base level. So it means that our surface is specific. This is next, please. Okay, so move ahead, nothing important in this slide. And what we did, and we are saying to you that we immobilize this one, we immobilize that one, and linker and some protein or antigen and antibody. How we are sure of that is they are on the surface. So there are the spectroscopic techniques available, and FTIR is one of the techniques that can give you information about, yes, what you have done. They are the different group and that are indicating over the surface, or if they are existing the group there, then their total number is increasing there. So that we have reflected here in the FTIR skin. They are telling about that whatever the modification you are doing on the surface, they are there, they are available, and they are there. That's what in this FTIR skin of your gold chip. So the gold chip in the total internal ATR condition of the FTIR, Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. FTIR, with ATR FTIR, the attenuated total reflectance, Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. It's the infrared spectroscopy. Your infrared is being measured and that are being reflected back on the surface, and that infrared which interact with the different chemical groups and bringing the information of that chemical group, whether that chemical group is absorbing in that particular region or no. So this is the information that we are catching on the FTIR spectrum and telling about, and that's yes, what we are doing on the surface is actually there. Next. So again, there is some different kind of next. Another surface, so DNP KLH. So this is a cycle of the injection that we did in a inhibition mode with a different TNT concentration. Here, what we did here with the TNT antibody, we added only the 500 ppb of TNT with it in a 50-50 concentration. So this again, see this 500 ppb and 500 ppb, it's giving the same response. This kind of response you cannot get in ELISA. What we are saying about the stability, so this is depicting, this is showing that this 500 ppb, when it is in the solution along with the TNT antibody, the RU value change is 470 RUs. This is also giving the 475 RUs. And the two injections, so at the level of the 470, you are having only the 5 RUs difference. That kind of the stability is there. If you do the repeated injection of your antigen over the surface, that's why we say that these systems are much robust as compared to the ELISA. And the limit, see the limit. If you are going for the 0.5 ppt TNT, it's showing the reduced level of your inhibition as compared to it. So it is showing the RU of around 407 RU. Here it is the 475 RU. And with what? The 0.5 ppt. It means that even a very smallest quantity of your antigen, it is inhibiting the response and with by 85%. So that kind of sensitivity. And if you go for the 5 ppb concentration of TNT, see only the 27% response. And RU that you got only 126. So that's the kind of the sensitivity that you achieve over this kind of a sensor surface. Next. Okay, just leave it. Okay, leave it. Just we are checking the IC50. Or leave it. Okay, leave it. Leave it. This is the displacement, nothing. Okay, leave it. Again, leave it. So this SPR sensor technology can be used and for the bacteria identification, for the virus identification, for the cancer, molecular interaction studies, for the drug interaction studies. So all these areas are wide open for detecting, for working the molecular interactions over these platforms, very robust technologies, but only drawback with this is that they are the very costly system, and not a good system is coming less than 50 to 60 lakh. So that's limiting its further use, but as such, these are the very good technology. Okay. Okay, these are the types of the sensors. Okay, next move ahead. Okay, leave. I have already told all these things. Okay. So now come to the relax. We have discussed one of the area. So when we gone there at Kyushu University, so we were placed at an old campus, and it was nothing better than our institution at the country. Old laboratories, similar in structure, but this new campus was being built up by the private partnership. So here not the government, but a private corporation are coming into the play, and they are developing the universities together with the government support. Only change was that they are preferring and for the courses which are demanded in the market, and their social commitment was less as compared to the government imperial universities. So this was the new building. After a year, I shifted to this new building. Is the huge structure, very nice made. Next, please. So this is the engineering block. Next, please. This is the one set of the engineering block. Next, please. And this is the machine I used to sit for a long time period. So initially for the 7-8 months, I almost worked round the clock over this understanding, developing, knowing this new technologies was a new challenge to establish myself at the Japan laboratory, and with the view that we have got a chance and we have to capitalize that chance. And I was alone at that period time, so I utilized in that time, even in the night, the most of the Japanese were out and for their other works, but I used to stay in the lab up to the 2 or 3, and then again back in the lab around 9 in the morning. So they are stuck up work for the last 3 years, and I put into moving, and in a year I got a first good publication out of that system. Next, please. This is the laboratory. You cannot see that it looks like an electronic lab. It is a lab as supposed to be the food or safety lab or the food science lab, or the lab itself was named as the ultrabiology lab. So they have several types of the sensors there, and particularly the potentiometric sensor, and for a taste sensor. This laboratory has got a world first taste sensor, and that are being used in Japan's food laboratories, and particularly the beverage industries, for knowing the taste and the taste of the human beings that are shifting over the period of time. So they keep watch over the taste the public is liking. Maybe the people are shifting their taste with respect to the coffee or the tea. So like that, they keep a watch. So this laboratory is the origin center and for this taste sensor. And there used to be a very active cooperation, and between the industry partners, they used to come and sit and get themselves briefed about the new researches being conducted in the university system. Next, please. And these are the robots and placed there. One robot used to clean all the labs in the morning session starting at 8, and by the time we reach the lab, it used to clean whole the lab by suction system. And this is a structure from the Hiroshima city. It is still as such, and this is only the remnant that is left after that bomb blast on the August 9 at the Hiroshima, and rest of the city was grounded, and the lakhs of the people died in that severe devastation that happened on the 9th of August in 1945. Next, please. So along with the professor, now is a professor in the same department. Earlier used to be the postdoctoral fellow, and my daughter now completed the master from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and son now trying to enter into the engineering college. Next, please. This is the rest of the Hiroshima. Now this is the Santi Park near that building that we have shown you. A very nice visiting place. You move around here. A very nice, vibrant city. We're sitting in the bullet train and called Shinkansen in the Japan. Next, please. So we nearby at the Shinkansen station, we were waiting for the train. As the time approaches, somehow we caught this train, because the timing of running the train is so accurate, they are not delayed by a minute. It is a fraction of a minute in Japan for the last 50 years. These are so many trains, they are different. Okay, next, please. So now we want to describe the projects that we have been the part of the PI or the co-PI. So several are the international project with the BBSRC, the ICR nanotechnology platform, Dr. RP Singh, and then the one DBT projects, the PI acted, then the niche area of biosensor, we finished this product for the PPR in Brucella. And this is another outreach program for the drug residue detection. Is still continuing. Then a niche area of excellence on the nanomaterial scaffold for the nerve, bone, and cartilage tissue regeneration. Dr. Sadhanbach, and we have been the part of that. and there are the other several projects continuing. Right now, we are the part of the CAST to ACLH program of the 20 crore scheme, where the most of the students, they are getting the facility for visiting the abroad, a unique program, and the Dr. Anil Gatani and Dr. Hira Khan availed these facilities for getting the overseas training and for the 3 months duration, which is an excellent program, and they have got exposure. And it's a very good thing for our student and faculty to get exposure at so early stage and to get motivated and for the future research in the country. Next. This slide we want to show, and for the lateral flow development work that we want to continue, and for in the few of the next slides. So that contains several membranes, absorbent pad, and the central part contains the nitrocellulose membrane or some other CNPF membrane. So you can have what you want. You want to have a membrane here which has a high protein loading, high protein binding capacity. So that kind of membrane you require here. Then there is a backing laminates here, plastic laminates here, and then you have a conjugate pad where you want to put your detection conjugate here, and then you have a sample pad here where you dip into it, or you want to put your sample pad here. So this is the overall the chromatographic strip structure, and these are the labels, whether it is the gold label or the polymeric labels, and whatever the kind of label, you need some coloring agent. And that coloring agent needs to be of kind where you can put your detection molecules over it, because when it moves with the color, and so that the color lines can be created over the test line and the control line. So that's why we need a coloring agent. And this portion and shows you need to mobilize your detection probe or detection molecules over these coloring label. So how to mobilize? They have to be bound. They should not be leave the surface of that. So they should not be detached. If they are detached, then you cannot get anything. So how to detach? So there are the ways to detach. So the physical adsorption, or called the electrostatic labeling, and that requires the knowledge of the PI of your intended detection probe and the knowledge of the buffers that you are going to bound. So, and also the type of the GNP, the gold nanoparticle, which is red in color, and the type of the gold nanoparticle, whether it is the negatively charged, and the kind of the buffer that are put into, whether it is suitable for the protein or whether it is suitable for the DNA. So that sort of background knowledge is required. So as to develop these strips, you need to be a capability of troubleshooting the problem that comes in the way of making these gold label with the detection molecules. And also you must have an idea about how to keep the flow rate and what sort of the membrane pore size you need to have, what kind of the detection, the conjugate pad you require, and the absorption sample pad. So all those parameters need to be optimized. And for developing a lateral flow, it looks like a simple one, but not easy one to have an optimized lateral flow assay. So over the years, and with a very short and very fewer grant, we were able to do, and now with experience, sometimes we are even able to develop in a short period of 2 to 3 months, if everything goes right, a lateral flow assay, and can be developed in a 2 to 3 month period if sufficient number of the samples you are having. So that's the possible, and we develop in that kind of expertise at our center here. Next, please. This is with respect to the PPR virus. So you all know the PPR is very important, around 2.5 billion, and that's also in the 2012 data. So maybe that loss is huge, and we are having a strong PPR eradication program, and hopefully we will finish. And with the kind of the backing that we have in the PPR program, we have a vaccines, a strong vaccine, and virus is also favoring with the not very mutating fast. It's a very stable virus, and we have a series of the detection technology, lateral flow, the ELISA, or the visual sensors, and we have a peptide aptamers. So a huge work, and we have done on the PPR at IVRI, and we have a strong capability in that area. Next, please. So this is how the PPR is endemic in the world over, except the few countries, and it's almost in Africa and in the Middle East, and also in the China and India and the neighboring countries, Bangladesh, and everywhere it is there. Next, please. So what our step should be, and we are fortunate and the kind of the work that Dr. R.P. Singh has done under his PhD program. He produced the finest monoclonal and for this PPR, and the 4B11 we found. Earlier we worked with a different kind of the 2 antibody setup, and later with the 2011 one paper we found that the same antibody can be used for as a detection probe also, and for the test probe also. So we used this 4B11, purified it, and put into make a gold 4B11 conjugate, and then this is the spotter machine, a simple machine of 1.5 log, and almost 20 set of antigen antibodies, and we have worked on, including some of the DNA probes. So the 2-3 students have worked on the DNA probes as well for detection of the brucella, and also for detection of the food origin. So these things, so we got a wide experience and exposure and for this kind of the lateral flow strips. Next, please. This is the initial work that we did with the PPR work. We checked what we do. We take those samples, or we take those assays to develop on the LFA when we find that already some ELISA testing has been done, because something we need to check it parallel, because if it is the antibody zero diagnosis, then we want to compare it to what our objective is. Have you tested on the ELISA reagents is purified one, how their response, we check with the OD. So that's why we need a ELISA. If it is prior done, then it's better for us. Next, please. This is the PPR kit that we have. So see, there's two red lines is one for the positive and single is for the negative. So 2 red zones, positive sample, single red zone, negative sample, field visible at the farmer's location. Technology is ready for the commercialization. So this we have demonstrated in the video also. So, okay, next please. So this is the protocol. We have already developed a protocol, and this we have a video also. We have checked all those things. The protocol is ready, and this is being used in the in our polyclinic, and we have got the strip packaged completely. And what recently we have done, we prepared the strip in 2017, and recently with the work of our one of the students, we brought those strip and checked with our cell culture virus, and still after 4 years, and the strips are working nicely, very nicely. Even we can check the level of the virus titer. If it is 10⁵ or 10⁵5.5, it's giving a very intense line. So those strips are very nice that we have worked out with this 4B11 antibody. Next, please. Now, some of the parasite we have now starting with the Babesia vogeli, that work that recently we have concluded. Next, please. Next. These are all the preparatory steps that we have done, conjugated, taken but here we have taken a different format. On the test line, we have taken a protein G, on the detection probe, we have taken a recombinant antigen, which is specific for the Babesia vogeli, and on the control line, we have taken the antibody of that recombinant protein that is specific for the Babesia vogeli. So that sort of format that we have used, somebody can question that the protein G is interacting with all the antibodies, but so the assay is the competitive one. So if you have antibodies of the different, then there are the antibodies of your own organism also there. It's a competitive process. Your gold comes, the gold level comes, and it binds on the test line. So it's absolutely fine to use the protein G on the test line. Next, please. So this is the line quality. It is still very fine. Test line, control line, absorbent pad, and the conjugate pad. So these test line, this is the negative samples on the right side, positive samples on the left side, and it is dried up strip, and so the dried up gold. If it is wet one, then you will see a very fine color. So they have taken the photograph of the dried up strip, and that's why little the bluish in the color. And when they are fresh with the water content there, then you will find and see the background, the nitrocellulose background is very clear here. All the background is purely white, and this is the control line that is appearing strongly, and these are the test line coming. A negative strip, only the control line is there, no test line is there. It means that, and we have checked on the different organism of also besides this Babesia bogelli. So they are very specific to this. This is the work that recently concluded. Next, please. Then another organism under the same project of Ehrlichia canis, and we did for one of the students from the veterinary parasitology department. Next, please. So then the preparation stage, again the same story, and we have seen that again the background is okay, and this is the test line. Some of the lines are a little faint, maybe depending upon the concentration in the serum sample. And so this is again one of the tests which is recently concluded, and we are confidently sure about that these tests are okay and for diagnostic testing anywhere. Next, please. Now, this is the most recent work that we are talking about, that only with the work of the 2.5 months, and we have been able to diagnose this Theileria inolata infection. Next, please. And here we have used the recombinant protein. This is the Theileria surface protein, recombinant protein, and the format is the similar. I think that the same protein G is coated on the test line, and then the antibody against that recombinant was coated. So next, please. This is the protocol, how we prepare the conjugate and see. In this case, little hazy here. Next, go back. So little hazy here, but to see the intensity of the gold line is quite good. This is taken at the time when it is little wet. So that's why the gold appears to be very red one, and showing the reactivity for the Theileria inolata detection, and no reactivity against no negative sera for the Theileria inolata. This is the fourth organism and of the parasitic nature which has been detected over these lateral fluorescence. Next, please. Okay, this is for the gluten pass on. Okay, leave it. Okay. This is the first work that we did at the 5-6 years back, and Babesia gibsoni, and very nice and very comprehensive work that we did, and over them checked with the different organism also for different sera for the Babesia canis, Babesia bogelli, Ehrlichia canis, so Apatocanis. So the different other organism we have tested and found that it's very specific to the Babesia gibsoni. Next. Now, one project that we have gone for a visual detection, just in the tube you have a detection probe, the color detection probe, and want to have a organism interaction and then the color getting changed. There is so development of the color visual diagnostic for the Listeria monocytes, that work was done, and we have been successful in detecting, but the sensitivity was little lower. Okay. So this is the kind of the DNA probe that we have had. Next, please. And we found that when there is a DNA conjugation, so for that you need to put to the separation of the DNA strand and then try to have interaction at particular temperature of 60 degrees or so. So that requirement is there. So in that sense, it is not that much okay. So, but the test is there, and so the shift in the spectrum and shift in the color. Next. So we checked how that Okay, let's move from, should not disagree from pictures. And this is the sensitivity check that we did in for the DNA gold probe for the Listeria monocytogenes. Next, please. So this is for the PPR also we have developed, we have got the 4 peptide aptamers and for the PPR detection, and when it is peptide aptamers is red, and when it interacts with the virus, it turns into the bluish in color. So that's, and you can see shifting of this change in color on the spectrophotometer as well. So that, so we correlated it, we found a strong correlation having a coefficient of 0.995. So that kind of work that we have done for the PPR. Next, please. Now we come to the work of the Anil Gatani, who is the coordinator of this program. This is the work on the electrochemical sensor that we have done. This is a small palm sense device and connected with the your desktop computer or the laptop computer, and these are the electrodes that we have used. So we have used 300, 400 electrodes and for the development of this neuraminidase sensor. Next, please. So this is the chemistry that he had done on that tiny dot, tiny black dot. He used the carbon electrode. So the carbon electrode was activated. So the carbon, you cannot attach any molecules. It's a carbon paste, the graphite paste. You cannot do any attachment of the molecules. Then you have to make that carbon to attach any molecule. So what to do? Then what we did, we put the sulfuric acid and then activated it and created the carboxylic group. And that sort of we have done, put to the cyclic voltammetry, H2SO4, and created the carboxylic group. And then we did the EDC NHS cross-linking of our phytoin molecule. Phytoin molecule, which is a model molecule for making this neuraminidase activity measurement. So the phytoin was immobilized and then there are the 2 routes where you add a PPR which has a neuraminidase, and then there is an inhibitor molecule here. The inhibitor molecule here, if you add inhibitor and it interacts in a competitive mode, and the kind of the electrochemical signal that you get will have a different value here. And if it is a PPR virus alone here, the kind of signal that you get for the neuraminidase activity and would be different. So the PNL actin was used and for binding and detecting the neuraminidase activity over this surface of electrode surface. It's a tiny dot of 1 mm over which this kind of electrochemical chemistry was done by Dr. Anil. And this is just simply the biochemistry, and behind the next slide, biochemistry. So this is the Nyquist plot. So the Nyquist plot is a plot, and that tells about the resistance that faced by the movement of the charges over this electrode, and it tells very specifically, it tells very repeatedly the kind of the resistance that occur while having these interaction of the molecules. So it's not that sometimes we get something, sometimes we get something. It's not. It's always a very repetitive, very reproducible result. So this is the kind of the plot that we get. It's a semicircle, and then it is the mass control diffusion region. So that kind of diffusion, then you get a straight line, and this value, we try to get this value called here it is the sample resistance, here it is the sample resistance, and plus the charge transfer resistance, RTT. This charge transfer resistance is of the value to us, and we try to see the change in this charge transfer resistance when we do our different chemistry or different inhibition of the molecules with respect to the neuraminidase activity. So this we have evaluated for different compounds, and we have found the gallic acid, panicalazine, and others. Here, go back again, go back. So here, what we just that the gallic acid one bar diagram. So here you see the gallic acid concentration, which is inhibiting your neuraminidase. So the neuraminidase enzyme, which is very essential for the virus pathogenicity in all the influenza virus or the PPR virus. So its role or its activity has been done in this experiment of the electrochemical sensor. And here we have a normalized delta RCT at the 100 and for the virus control. And when we use the virus under the inhibition mode and with the concentration of 40 micromolar, it is very much reduced. And when it is the 20 micromolar, it is reduced, and by the percentage you can see how much is the change. And when it is even the 10 micromolar, you see it's almost a 40% reduction of the neuraminidase activity. So the gallic acid is found to be a very good inhibitor of the neuraminidase activity under this. And similarly, he has done another ELLA assay and seen that the gallic acid concentration, it is in the reverse direction, it is more than a 70% reduction with the 40 micromolar gallic acid concentration over the enzyme-linked lactin acid. So this is a very good platform where you can study the inhibition of the enzyme over the electrochemical sensor surface. Next. So under this CAST program, we are developing a electrochemical sensor for the Brucella, which is right now underway, and we have been successful in immobilizing the LPS, which is lipopolysaccharide. Till now, we are immobilizing the protein molecule, which has the carboxylic or the NH2 group. But these groups are not available on the LPS. So then we have to need another different kind of chemistry to immobilize the LPS on this electrochemical sensor surface of this tiny black dot. So we have tested a new method, a NTA copper, using the NTA copper, we immobilize and through the EDS chemistry, this LPS membrane, and we are getting a repetitive result in all this. Next, please. Next. So this is the structure of the LPS membrane, having these 3-4 major inner membrane, periplasm, outer membrane, and the lipopolysaccharide. Here is the number that creates a difference in the different LPS membrane. And this is the Nyquist plot, the electrochemical sensor that gives the unique plot over it. And when you decrease your Brucella antibody in a controlled study, you see the different delta RCT change. So it means that your electrochemical sensor is responding to the available antibodies in the sample. So that's have been proven, and we are pretty sure that we are around and for developing this type of the electrochemical sensor for the Brucella antibody. Next, please. So here these are our students who have gone for the overseas training. Dr. Anil Gattani with Dr. Shane Gupta in the Missouri University. He worked on a different kind of sensor there. He's trying to develop a sensor, some kind of electrochemical sensor in some projects. So we have submitted a project in the DST, and hopefully if we get, and then we will move ahead on this part. Here